Okay, we're live now. Um, Hello, viewers out there. This is another episode of Life and Relationship Realities with Tolu Alabi. And today I have an important guest. She is a senior friend to me. She's a prayer partner. She's amazing woman to me, and it's a pleasure and an honor to bring her on right now. Um, I'm going to introduce my guest. She's Lyn Zolman. She grew up with wonderful parents who taught her how to take care of a home and taught her how to be independent. For the first 6 years of her life, she had her mother's complete attention. Lyn helped her mom clean the house and then helped her with washing and ironing. There were not automatic washers and dryer at that time. During the summer, she did the washing and hanging the clothes on a line on Monday, ironing on Tuesday, cleaning on Wednesday. On Saturdays, her father often organized outdoor activities for the family. There were things like washing windows, washing the car, mowing the lawn. The work was done first, and then they could play. By the time she was 10 and a half, Lyn's mother told her not to ask if she could do something, but to tell her what she planned to do. Her mom rarely objected to Lyn's choice of activities. Lyn's family moved a lot. The longest she lived in one place was in Lakewood, Ohio, from 8 to 12 grades. This made Lyn very adaptable, learning to meet new people and making new friends. At age 13, Lyn was confirmed in the Episcopal Church, and at 11, she took over caring for her 8-year-old brother and the house while her mother was hospitalized for 6 weeks. Lyn has a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in education with a specialty in reading. She met her husband in college and they were married a year after she graduated. Her husband was in the Navy when they married. He did get out of the Navy for 5 months, but returned to complete 27 years as a career naval officer. This meant moving every 2 years or more. This allowed for many new experiences for Lyn, her husband, and her children. They lived in many locations along the east coast of the United States and then Taiwan and Hawaii. So Lyn is a mom and a grandmom. Help me welcome Lyn Zolman. You're welcome, Miss Lyn.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you, Tolu.
Okay, it's a pleasure always, Miss Lyn. Were you able to share before we go on? Were you able to share the page?
I did, and it was making so much noise that I turned it off.
Yeah, so it's good that you turned it off, Miss Lyn.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so.
So you're welcome again. Of course, you're not a guest to me. Um, we have a women's program, women's group that we meet every Thursday morning. Right now, Miss Lyn is leading the program. She's an awesome leader. So we share the word, we pray together as women, and now we're doing an interesting book, isn't it? Women of the Bible. So today we want to talk about Mother's Day. I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the people that are watching right now. Happy Mother's Day to you out there. I hope you all had a wonderful Mother's Day celebration. And Miss Lyn, how was your Mother's Day celebration yesterday?
Oh, my Mother's Day celebration was wonderful. We had outdoor church in 37 degrees, and I was the greeter and helped people find a little place to sit, staying distanced, and wearing long underwear, sweaters, and a big ski jacket so I could stay warm. And then I went to my daughter's house where my son-in-law fixed a wonderful luncheon for my daughter and for me. He's a gem.
Wow.
Then we played games.
Hmm. What kind of game? What kind of game was that? I remember when I
Well, we
came
have a game
visiting.
that we have a game that we got started. If, if anybody's ever played solitaire, that you play with one person. Well, we have a game that we now call it's solitaire, but we call it brawlitaire because if you get three or more people playing, it becomes a brawl. You fight over who
Ah,
gets to put what card down. Then we played darts. And I won one game out of three. So that was wonderful. And
wow.
then I came home.
Okay. Okay, Miss Lynn, today we're talking about Mother's Day celebration. I want you to quickly talk about how was your childhood? I know we said a lot about how you clean the house, how you learn to be independent, right from little age. So but generally, how did your childhood help with your motherhood as a woman?
Um, I learned all those things that you talked about from my mother. So I could keep house. I kept a clean house, a neat house. I could um, deal with children. My mom was pretty strict, and so was I when I had my children. I was a rebellious child. I didn't always do what I was told. I was spanked a lot and sent to bed without dinner many times because
Wow.
I didn't do what I was supposed to do. How did it help with my children? Um, it just kind of carries on the things that your mom does for you, you try to do for your children. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but when my oldest was 3, I learned something that I had never thought of. We worked puzzles, and she was very good at puzzles. And there were 3 puzzles, and they were layered one on top of the other and stored in the closet. And she wanted to work a puzzle. I was busy in the kitchen. So I said, you can only do one puzzle at a time. Then I started hearing this little pitter pat going back and forth and back and forth. And I thought she was going to work a puzzle. What's going on? She was carrying little pieces and taking them to the living room to work the puzzle from the
Hmm.
top puzzle. I thought, oh no, I meant you should carry the box and only take the top puzzle. So, I mean, disconnect on how differently children see their parents. I mean, understand what their parents are saying and what you think you're saying. So she was a very compliant child.
Hmm. Wow.
So I had a lesson to learn because I had not been the compliant child.
Wow. It speaks of volume what you learn from your parents and how you can easily pass it on to your own children. So let's talk about when you got married. I'm gonna ask you, when did you start having children? Did you have to stay for a year or two before you start having children after you got
We,
married?
we were going to wait 2 years. And then we'd been married 5 months when I got pregnant. I was very ignorant about the whole thing and didn't even realize I was pregnant until I was 3 months along.
How?
And when I told my mother, she had a fit and said, well, probably not. And I thought, well, Well, the doctors probably yes. So we were married in June of 61, and I had her in August of 62. So we didn't have a lot of time together before we had children, but we had gone together in college, throughout college. So we knew each other pretty well.
Okay. So let's talk about childhood. At what point did you and your husband talked about raising children? Did you talk before you got married or after you got married? When did you start talking about, okay, we're gonna have children, this is how we're gonna do it, this is how we're gonna raise our children? When did you start having that conversation?
Oh, well, we had the child, and both of us were very naive. Neither one of us had ever changed a diaper. So we were sitting in the kitchen when she was about 2 weeks old. And Dick was getting ready to go to sea in another 2 weeks. So he started informing me how we were going to raise the children. And it was quite a long list, which I don't remember all of it. But the thing that really struck me was that he ended the conversation by saying, and when she learns to drive, she's not going to have the car until she buys her own insurance, which I
Wow.
okay, that's enough. We've gone far enough. But he was trying to let me know that, hey, we need to talk about this. And so we set some boundaries. Boundaries are
Wow.
important with children. And my parents definitely had boundaries for me. And so we started with 4 boundaries. Actually, we started with boundaries. We decided, what is it that we don't want them to go beyond? What can we tolerate? What can they, and what's really important to us? And then we were very consistent in enforcing those boundaries. And we kept our promises. If we made a promise, we kept it. And we loved our children. So those 4 things were the things that kind of stayed with us: boundaries, consistency, love, and keeping promises.
Okay, but I was gonna ask you about that, about how you set boundaries and you were consistent with boundaries, because from my own experience, I know that sometimes some things happen, and how do you still keep the boundaries? Like my children were not allowed to watch television on weekdays except Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. But then the COVID happened and we were all home. And to have my peace sometimes, I cannot break those rules, which is not right. But if you were in this situation, how do you keep the boundaries with so many when situation or circumstances change? How do you still keep such boundaries?
Well, one thing I did, when we lived in Taiwan, we lived across from a rice paddy. And Linda had kind of fallen into it. And they knew what went into that rice paddy. And it wasn't something they really wanted to eat anything that came out of it. I mean, it's very soupy to begin with. So they did not like rice. Well, one time when they were, I guess, age 6 to 8, they weren't doing the jobs that we had planned for them. And so I just looked at them and I said, okay, I'd get in trouble if I didn't feed you, but nobody says what I have to feed you. So if you can't do your jobs, then all I'll feed you is rice. They did their jobs. They weren't, and they knew because it was a promise. I will give you rice if you don't do them. And they weren't going to have that. So that was one way. Um, Another way, when our youngest they had time that they had to be home. And when our youngest was, probably in middle school, she went to a neighbor's house right across the street. And they also, if the parents weren't home, they had to leave. So it got to be 8:45 and the deadline was 8:30. So I walked over and I knocked on the door. And the young man answered, who was about a year older than she, and he had a younger sister. And I said, "Is Linda here?" And he said, "Yes." Then I found out that not only was she there beyond her bedtime, I mean, not her bedtime, but her curfew, the parents weren't there.
Oh.
I thought, aha. So we left, and Linda very smartly looked at me and said, "Well, are you going to ground me?" I had never grounded them. I didn't believe in grounding. I thought it was not appropriate for my children. So I said, "Linda, I really have no idea what I'm going to do. I'll let you think about it tonight, and I'll think about it, and we'll talk in the morning." She didn't sleep very well that night. And the next morning I said, "You showed me you weren't responsible, and I know I can't trust you. So it's your job now to find a way to build your trust back in me. I mean, to let me begin to trust you." And she said, "Well, what do I have to do?" I said, "That's for you to decide." Well, she would come home and take the clothes off the line, and she just started doing all these wonderful things that she really had rebelled about doing before. And finally, after about a week or two, I said, "Okay, you win. I can trust you again."
Wow. So that meant so much to her.
Pardon?
I said that meant so much to her.
Right. And they were also restricted in television and what they could watch. And it was an hour during the week, and they had to watch the same program, so they had to agree on it. And then on the weekend, they could have 2 hours. So I got a call from my oldest daughter's teacher one day saying, "Kelly tells me she can't watch a program I would like them all to see." And I said, "Well, tell me about the program." And she did. And I said, "How long is it?" And she said, "An hour." And I said, "Kelly has a choice. She can decide to watch it or not, but she's capable of watching it. She has an hour."
Wow.
So Kelly gave up her program and watched what her teacher wanted.
Wow.
But it's just, my grandchildren call me Gummy. And I think it's a great name because I'm a little sticky and a little sweet.
Miss Lyn, I'm quite curious about how you were able to, your husband was in the Navy, and so that means that you had more time with our girls. You have two daughters. You had more time with the girls growing up. So how were you able to do all of these, being strict, being loving, taking care of children and all of that? How are you able to do all of these? Did you have a full-time job, or did you have a part-time job? Did you stay at home? How did that work out?
When we lived in Taiwan, I did not work after they were born until about 8 years. I think our oldest was in second grade. When we lived in Taiwan, and we had a full-time ama, which is basically a maid who lived in. And I didn't have anything to do. I had been bowling, tennis. You can only play so much tennis, golf, and bowling before you go nutty. So after about 6 months, I decided to get a teaching job at Taipei American School. So I did for a year and a half. I taught there. And partway through, my husband informed me that I was spending more time with my lesson plans and all that stuff and less with the children. And I said, "Dick, this is for my mental health. I cannot be home all the time with just me, the children, and the maid, and not be able to do the things that I need to do." Well, when we left Taiwan, I found out that my youngest daughter needed a little bit of attention getting straightened up again. And so I stayed home and I didn't work unless Dick was not deployed. So I
Okay.
think when they were in when they were in junior high and high school, I went back to work. And they were old enough so they could cook and they could do all these things because I had taught them to cook. And one of them loved to do yard work. And so, I mean, they always had something they needed to do that didn't have anything to do with their allowance. I mean, these were things you do because you live here. Thank you.
Wow.
You can
I
see I'm
think
still.
it's Miss Lynn, but it's quite important, with what you're talking about mothers giving attention to the children, especially at their formative years,
It is
because
important.
you are to do that.
Right. It's
You are
extremely
to do that.
it's extremely important to be there for your children in their formative years. And my lesson, having left Linda, who was 4 to 6 when we lived in Taiwan, was one that I thought, okay, we need to really stay home and make sure things happen the right way.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. It seems like you and your husband worked a lot together. Um,
We
both of
agreed
you
on
were,
things.
yeah.
We
So
we
tell us
we
about that.
well, we talked when he was home. And one of the ways that we kept the children connected with him was through pictures. I would send literally in the mail a photograph, um, or 5 or 6, for him to see what they were doing. And here's a fun one. I sent pictures of Kelly climbing. She was 3 or 4, and she climbed on top of the swing set. She climbed the tree in the backyard, and she would run along the picnic table and jump off. When he got home, these hadn't registered that I was showing him pictures of this. It was a 7-month cruise, so the children changed a lot. And he saw her climbing on the swing set, and he said, "She can't do that." And then he saw her climbing the tree and said, "Oh no, that's bad." I thought, "Didn't you climb a tree when you were a kid?" And then he saw her running on the picnic table. Well, there was a loose board in the picnic table. And I said, "Okay, Dick, she's going to climb. Pick which is the best for your peace of mind." And he chose the tree. So she
Wow.
was allowed to climb the tree, but no more running on the picnic table. But I mean, some of the things would bother him, but I was really pretty much in charge. But we did talk. We shared tapes. I'm not talking about what a VCS, I'm not talking about a movie type thing. I'm talking about a reel to reel tape that we would send back and forth. And they could hear his voice when he sent one back to us, and he could hear their voices. And we always look forward to getting those and sending them. So, I mean,
Wow.
we tried very hard to keep him connected with what was going on in their lives. But here's the thing. In the Navy, as an officer, he got to sit at a dining area where there were white tablecloths and cloth napkins, and they were fed 4 different courses, and it was served to them. And we at home were eating in the kitchen hot dogs and fun things that kids liked. And when he would come home, he looked at me and he said, "They giggle." And so I thought, okay, we need to solve this problem. So we would start eating in the dining room with a tablecloth and cloth napkins when he came home, and gradually get him back into being with the family, and the girls,
Wow.
being a little more formal than they had been.
Okay. Okay. Miss Lynn, can you kind of talk to people about how important is it for the couple to work, for parents to work together to raise their children, because you find a situation where the father wants this done and the mother wants something else done. And sometimes right in the middle of their whole issue is their children watching them. And the dad is saying, oh yeah, you can go out and stay till 9 p.m. And the mom is saying, no, you shouldn't stay more than 8 p.m. And they're arguing right in front of their children. How important is it for parents to work together to raise children?
Children are very smart. They learn how to play their parents against each other really quickly. And an
Mm,
example that I have is in my brother's marriage when he had children. They didn't agree. They argued in front of the children. He would tell them one thing, she would tell them another. Those children today, my niece and nephew, are, well, my niece is in her 40s. I think she just turned 40. And my nephew's 37. They aren't married. They don't have
mm,
children
mm,
because that memory is in their hearts and their minds. If they were to get married, they would need counseling in how to deal with a family and with a marriage. Um, it's truly very sad to know his regret, my brother's regret, and so working together is so very important.
wow,
But
that's
one of the
sad.
yeah one of the things that my husband did, and it was pretty much me. I would talk with him and let him know what my thoughts were and how, and take his advice if he had some to give. But I was the one that enforced that. I was mom and dad a lot of the times. I mean,
Mm,
6 month cruises, 7 month cruises, those are pretty tough. Can I tell
mm,
you one little thing? He came back one time from a long cruise. And my parents always came at Christmas time. Well, the ship was arriving maybe a week before Christmas. And I told my parents they couldn't come that year. And Dick called me shortly thereafter and said, oh, by the way, my mom is coming for Christmas. I thought, oh dear. So I told him what I had done with my parents. And I asked him, I said, would you be willing to call your mom and tell her not to come? And we can go in January and go visit them. We need time as a family to reunite, to spend time together so that we, begin to know each other again.
mm.
So he agreed.
I- mhm.
And that's what we did. And it was great. My parents were not happy with me. But when you get married, you agree to be with your husband and let your parents go. It's biblical. It's in there somewhere in Genesis. Leave
Yeah.
and cleave, what my son-in-law calls it.
Yeah, I think when couple work together, it makes life easier for them, for the children, and so on. I mean, it's
Mhm.
very good. Miss Lynn, let's talk about mental health. Let's talk
Yes.
about mental health. How did that play out for you? What advice will you give to mom that are constantly overwhelmed, like Tolu Alabi? How like you're just everywhere. You're going to soccer field, you're going to this. I mean, Miss Lynn, you have had to help me several times, take the boys to school, or sometimes I have to call you, Miss Lynn, please, I'm somewhere now. Can you please help me pick Duri, Ezra to soccer? Because I'm handling something else. And sometimes it gets so overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like your head is just gonna split into two, and sometimes you're really so stressed out that if you're not careful, you want to nag at the children and so on like that, because you're just filled up with so much stress. So how did you handle mental health, and what advice will you give to mom out there?
Well, mental health was really kind of big in my mind because my mother was schizophrenic. And she was very good when she wasn't having an episode and ending up in the hospital. But so when my youngest daughter, oldest daughter, I'm sorry, turned 2, she became the terrible twos. And I had a book called Giselle's Child Behavior. Now I'm talking about young children, in the formative years. And I found out, oh, she's normal. I guess I get to deal with this. And then one thing I did, I can't tell you what others would do, but back in the day, I mean, I was bringing up children in the 60s and 70s. So it was different. And I had a woman who came to babysit. And I would have her come at least twice a week so that I could go to the commissary, which is a grocery store for the military, and so that I could do something with other women, Navy wives kind of stuck together, and so I could do some volunteer work. And I didn't do it all in one week, but it just, you cannot be on 24/7 and stay sane. I mean, it's really difficult. So I sought help with a babysitter. Do you want to hear the story about my leaving Dick with the children when
Please
he
go ahead.
turned?
Go ahead.
This is when we had infant and a 2-year-old. Dick had just gotten back from about a 2-week cruise to kind of, they call it a shakedown cruise, make sure the ship's working. And then they were going to deploy to the Pacific. So this was going to be a 7-month cruise. So I had a training I was going to go to to be volunteer at our naval hospital. And it was the last piece of the training. I had to have it. And I left Dick with the children, infant and 2. This is a man that had not been around them. When I got home, he was furious. This is not something that happened very often, but he was furious. Don't ever leave me with the children again. I mean, but this went on for quite a while. I mean, we had a big brouhaha discussion, I could call it, but it was not so much a discussion as a fight, and not physical, but verbal. And to this day, he does not babysit. He did not babysit with grandchildren unless I was present. If the children asked for help, they knew it was either going to be me or both of us. It would never be just Dick. And even when they got older, he was better, but he just knew nothing. And so I don't recommend dumping children on a husband that doesn't know much about how to raise them. It's not a good plan.
Yeah, definitely. So that was the thing you had to do with the mental health thing. So it's more like saying to women, don't be in denial. Don't be in denial. When you're overwhelmed, your brain needs to rest. I have to tell myself that all the time. Sometimes you
today,
just have to.
Yeah, I think today their parents have play dates, and they have they exchange babysitting with other people, other friends who have children of a similar age. That probably would work better today than, I mean, I was paying 50 cents an hour. Today it's a bit much more expensive for a babysitter that would come in. So
Definitely.
but find ways to just get a break.
Anger with other people, volunteer in church, do things that helps your mind.
Feel a purpose for your life too, besides changing diapers and doing laundry.
Yeah, go after your dream. Okay, so Miss Lyn, let's talk about, you raise your children and you're still are raising your children are raising
their children. You froze too, Lou. So I'll go ahead and talk. My children are raising their children, and their children are pretty much raised. And I have 2 grandchildren that are married, And I'm here to tell you, they haven't had children yet. I don't think they're even thinking about it yet. But
Yeah.
it's
Sorry. Okay.
beautiful the way my together. Um, I remember my husband and I used to look at each other and just say, how did we become so blessed that these children and our grandchildren grew up so well, and they're such great citizens and great people, and they don't argue with each other. That and my husband just went like this, and he pointed up, meaning it's God. So I add another thing to the boundaries, that not only do you set boundaries and be consistent, keep your promises, love your children, but bring God into it. Love God. God will help you so much if you only ask.
Hmm. Somebody was talking about the issue with children, about when a partner is saying, when a spouse is saying something, maybe the mom is saying something to the children and correcting something. If the dad has a different opinion at that time, it should wait, not saying, not both of them talking about the thing. But I also feel that, yeah, which is very good. And I also feel that both of them need to discuss things before it gets out. Like somebody has just done something, one of the children have done something. Husband and wife should be able to discuss that before they sleep or early in the morning before they address the situation. You know, except in the case of abuse, maybe the mom is being abusive to the child. The father is not going to keep quiet and say, oh, we have to be on the same page. No, that's not the page to be on. So the issue about God has helped you, what are other things, that you feel that, oh, we did right? God help us to do right. There's somebody out there. I mean, we've said a lot about some of these things, but somebody out there can say, okay, I didn't get to do this well. Maybe I can start with this. What are the things that you really felt that God helped you to do in the life of the children that has turned well? Because I mean, I've seen your daughter, and I see the home, and I see that they have a good life, and your grandchildren are doing well too. So what are the lessons there that other parents can take home?
Um, just be consistent, keep the
Mm,
boundaries, and love them. But don't vacillate. I mean, that consistency. If you say one thing one day and something, let them get away with it the next day, they're going to test you. Um,
mm,
I think God was there. I look back and I think he was there the whole time, even though sometimes I didn't know it or I didn't even call on him. But I know they wouldn't have been the people they are today without that. And they all, I mean, really and truly, they go to church. They do that. That was one thing that we did. We went to church as a family. We prayed. Um, it's bringing God into your life and
mm.
let him show you how to love and guide you. And when you get to the point where you'd like to kill one of your children or you'd like to tear your own hair out, you just kind of go out and walk around the house or do something and then come back in and, take deep breaths and come back in and go, okay, let's talk about this. Um,
Yeah.
there were days I really and truly would love to have set the children out for the trash man. But, I did. They weren't
Wow.
perfect. They still aren't perfect. None of us are. Perfection is something that we can attain. God planned it that way. He wants to be in
Mm,
charge.
mm. Wow. You know, the consistency thing that you talk about is very important, because and also showing an example to the children, because for me that was what my grandmother did. If she wants you to do something, she's gonna model that thing for you. And I
Mhm.
see these days when parents said, "Oh, you shouldn't keep late night and everything," and the parent or one of the parent is always keeping late nights. So
Mhm.
if you keep late night, number one, how are you gonna know if your children have kept to the rules or not? And then if you say everybody eats at the dining table, and as a parent or parents, you're not eating on the dining table, that is not also being consistent, isn't it?
I remember my mom telling me, do as I say and not as I do. That doesn't work because children watch very carefully your behavior, and that's what they model. They
Hmm.
model
Hmm.
what you do, not what you say. They may hear what you say, but what you do is important. So if one person is staying out late, or you're both staying out late, or you're both doing drugs, or you're both doing alcohol, or whatever, this doesn't work. It's a real problem.
Yeah. So the discipline, how to be a good mom, starts from being a good person.
I guess that's true. And who made me a good person? My parents and God
Mm,
and my brother.
mm, mm.
And
It's
my
very important.
can I give my husband credit too? Because all the tact and diplomacy I ever learned came from him.
Wow. He was such a good man.
Pardon?
I said he was such a good man.
Yes, he was. He was a very, very good man, very caring man.
Hmm. You
Mhm.
were blessed. I mean, because all of those things also played a lot on how things have turned out, because I imagine when parents are not really getting along well and so on like that, it's going to affect the working together, that should impact the children. Like you talk about when people doing drugs, they're doing alcohol, most of the time the dad or the mom are even passed out. So how do you see what the children are doing or how to correct the children in the first place? So it's very important, to do that and to be a good man, to be a good wife, to be a good husband is very good. With that, you'll be able to raise good children with the help of God. Okay,
When
so
I say one of the
mhm,
things you asked me early on was how did my parents' marriage affect me? I mean, in my upbringing. And I knew when I got married that I didn't want a marriage like theirs because
mm,
it wasn't what I wanted. So my husband and I went together for 4 years, 4.5 years before we got married. I was in college, and my parents had told me that if I got married while I was in college, my husband had to support me. They were through. They would no longer support me. And I thought, okay, I knew they meant it. And so I told Dick, I said, I'm going to finish college and I want to know the best of you and the worst of you. And I want you to see me at my best and me at my worst so we can decide, is this what we really want with each other? And I think that helped a lot. We took a lot of time, but we were young. I mean, 17 and 18 is pretty young to meet each other and hurry up and get married. That was not an option. So I
mm,
was early 20s before we
wow.
got.
Hmm. Miss Lee, you said something that is very important now. You said you told yourself you didn't want the kind of marriage your parent had.
And Dick didn't want the kind his had because his parents were divorced. So we were both going to make sure that whatever we had was solid and that we could make it work. That we were
Hmm.
not only in love, we were friends.
Hmm. So if you didn't want the kind of parent, the kind of marriage your parent had, that means you didn't do the kind of things that they did.
No, there were some really good things they did. I just didn't want
No,
the
the
parent.
wrong things.
Pardon?
The wrong things. What was it that was the major thing that you didn't want? Is it something you can talk about? You don't
Well,
have to.
my mother was a party girl and a fun-loving person, according to her sisters. I never saw that side of her. When she was young, growing up, she had a good time. She loved people, and she and my father got married. I think they met in September and were married the following March. And my father was, um, he would come home from work and go to a room, his hidey ho kind of, and play with numbers or do something like that, draw things on graphs, but he didn't interact with her. And she was always saying, "Can't we get together as a family, Jack? Will you read to the children, Jack? Will you read to us all? Can we watch Lux, can we listen to Lux radio?" But he was always more withdrawn and more needing time and space alone after a long day at work.
Hmm.
And she'd, of course, been with the children all day long without a break and wanted his attention. And one of the things I thought, no, that's not good.
Hmm.
And of course, they also came from different, his family was Scots Irish and English. Hers was Roman Catholic Irish. So we had the orange and the green coming together and fighting.
Wow. Yeah, you know why I had to ask you that? Because some people live their life, their parent didn't do well, in their
Mm.
marriage. There were certain things that the parent did that didn't make the marriage to work, but the couples are not learning from their parent and they're doing the same thing that their parent did that didn't make their marriage work, and it's also affecting their marriage
Yeah.
because they didn't come to a point where they tell themselves, I want a different kind of marriage. I want a different kind of home. And on the spiritual note too, it's more like a generational cause in some things where it's going from this generation to that generation to that generation. And the person is not paying attention to it to say, oh, this is something that got to stop. It shouldn't continue in my life, in my marriage, in my home. And you have such things, happening over and over again. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that you said that means you know the kind of marriage you wanted to have. And trying to get to know yourself, the worst part of yourself, the best part of yourself, was part of the things you did, part of the steps you took in making sure that you don't have such things repeating itself. And it actually played out for you because, I mean, you married to your husband died. Is it 2 years now? It's about 2 years now, Miss Lyn.
It'll be 3 years in September, so it's 2.5 years.
Two and a half
Actually,
years, yeah.
2 years, 2 months, and some days. It's been a while.
Okay. Okay. I remember we met the year that he died.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so
That
let's
Chris,
talk about this.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Let's talk about this acoustic wonderful. What is it about?
Well, my oldest daughter really and truly loves to come. She loves puns, and she loves all sorts of things to do with words. And so for Mother's Day, see if I can find it. She sent me this acrostic, which was, I'm not sure, but some of it really was about her. Um, it was called Wonderful. And then she took the W and the O, and she came up with various things. So W was, wow, I'm glad you're my mom. Your walk
Hmm.
is admired and to be imitated, both literally as you walk 3 miles a day and figuratively as you walk out your life. And then O, oh, so honorable. Honorable sounds like O, in how you treat others. And N, knitting, lots of prayer shawls for people who need them. I have mine, and they just traveled to North Carolina, and she took it with her. I gave it to her several years ago. She loves it. What's more, it's
Wow.
purple. Loves purple. D, delightful conversationalist. That was brief. Exquisite taste and excellent fashionista.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
R, ready to roll with whatever life throws at you and run people around to Bible studies and various organizations. And she had to
Hmm.
use the run people because I used to drive people, but R went with R, run. F, faithful and fruitful to teach, lead in various organizations, family, and the catechesis of the Good Shepherd. U, unwavering in your devotion to God, family, and friends. And L, lovable and loved by God, family, and friends. So it
Wow.
was very sweet. And I got her permission to be able to share it. So,
Yeah, that was wonderful. I mean, most the things that you talked about now, there are a lot of them I can actually relate with you, because if someone said, "Oh, she's wonderful," I'll definitely agree with that, because you do so many wonderful things. You sacrifice a lot, you sacrifice a lot, and so many things that you do. Every time I pray, I like, God, just help me with the grace that Miss Lyn have, because you're over 80 and you walk around this place, several times, and it inspires me a lot to walk around and get exercise. And you're so smart. You can bend down to pick things, you can walk around, you can drive things. I remember when I had a car problem, and you will always come to take the boys to school. And you're like, oh, I'll be there 7. And exactly 7 p.m. You're right there. Sometimes we're wrapping up with a family prayer, and I'm like, oh, Miss Lyn is here, Miss Lyn is here. And even in the cold, you will come out and do those things. I mean, that's just really amazing. Those are wonderful things about you. You just care, you want to listen, you want to pray, you want to give good advice. I just really appreciate you being a blessing to me. And of course, the boys, Zuri will always say, Miss Lyn is an angel. So I want to appreciate you being an angel. So Miss Lyn, we want to wrap up. I want you to give advice to mom. Do they say don't give advice? I think so, but you can give advice. I want you to speak your last word of advice to mom out there. Some mom are overwhelmed, some mom are stressed, some mom are unhappy with the way things are turning out with their children. Some moms are unhappy with their marriages. Some mom are happy and excited to be alive, to have the children. So I just wanted to speak to all those different kind of moms that are watching or are going to watch.
that's very hard. Um, it takes two to tango. In other words, I know that sounds silly, but you both have to be willing to take that time. Both parents that I'm talking about have to be willing to sit down and talk and come to set your boundaries. What is it that you can't take? Okay, we won't do that. What is it that you can? That'll be part of our family life. But if you both can't do that, then you're going to end up giving the children really bad messages. And if you're overtired, And well, you're going to be more overtired and stressed. If you're having problems communicating with your husband or your wife or whatever, it's just going to add to any stress that you already have. But pray and do, God will give you guidance. I know that just sounds like a put off, but it's not. It's really great advice, and sometimes he gives you just what you need to know. But you have to listen. You have to
Hmm.
listen to children, to listen to your husband or wife, and you have to listen to God.
Hmm.
And no one else can really tell you what to do. And sometimes you need to seek counseling to
Hmm.
help you work through it, to have somebody outside the family to talk about the issues. But there again, two people have to be willing for that. And
Hmm.
I will tell you, my youngest daughter, the one you know, has had counseling and is studying to be a counselor. Um, she had a lot to work through. It wasn't always being my daughter.
Hmm.
Excuse me, it wasn't always easy being my daughter. I was strict. But she has come to love me and really
Hmm.
appreciate me and my friends. So, but sometimes you do need that outside person to help walk through.
Hmm.
And sometimes you really don't understand a need that a child has. Maybe it's not something you recognize, and that can happen. And so it's nice to have an outsider be able to say, uh, "Have you noticed this? Do you see this?" And that's a difficult thing. But
Wow.
seek help if you need it,
Hmm.
and if you're really stressed. Yeah. And I don't know that I can offer anything more in that line.
That's okay, Miss Lynn. I really appreciate you. It's always a pleasure to have you. The last time you came to and you talk about marriage, and I know a lot of people called me and they were so happy about, especially the fact that you can work together with your husband. I think it's amazing to be able to have that. And I believe that people that are watching or that are going to watch can take that home to say that you really have to work together. You cannot overemphasize that. Working together, the Bible said, if two shall agree concerning a thing, it shall be established. It's not just in prayer, but in things. And that you have a beautiful family today to your grandchildren is a thing to commend. And I must commend you for the work you've done, and the grace that God has given you and that you're still doing, because you're still helping your grandchildren. I mean, you're there for my own children too, and I appreciate that all the time. So I want to say to you, Miss Lynn, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. And most importantly, thank you for who you are. There are things that we don't talk about, but there are things that I just learn from you, the things that you do. I want to really appreciate you and keep on being alive for us. You know, you have to stay alive. You have to stay
Uh,
alive for us. And
right.
yeah.
I have to live to 100. It's been so ordained by my youngest daughter. Although you are
Wow.
wonderful too, and I love your boys. They're so special. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, viewers, this was all that we can do today. We're going to come next week with another episode of this program, Life and Relationship Realities with Tolu Alabi. I've been speaking with Miss Lynn. She's a wonderful woman. She's an amazing woman that we can learn from. If you want to have a conversation, learn something, you can go on our Facebook timeline. Actually, you're going to see her name on it, and then if you have a question you want to ask her, please feel free to ask her. So Miss Lynn, and to everyone, bye for now.
Bye bye.